Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Super Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 4 UFL predictions. So last week, I had a record of 2-2, and that brings my record on the season to 7-5. Kicking things off this week with the game we have on Friday, and that is the Showboats at the Panthers. And we'll have a live watch party for this game that will start at about 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, so I hope to see you guys there. This is already the second time these two teams are meeting this season, as they also played in Week 1, and in that game, the Panthers won 26-12. Although that game was a lot closer than the final score may suggest. The Showboats, they've struggled so far, as they're currently sitting at 0-3, and they're coming off a loss to the Roughnecks. The Showboats will also be playing without head coach Ken Wisenhunt, who's now stepped down, and this comes a few weeks after he took a leave of absence for personal reasons, so I definitely hope everything is okay with Ken Wisenhunt. But the Showboats' interim head coach will be offensive line coach Jim Turner, and he was actually the acting head coach in Week 1 in the first meeting between these two teams. The Showboats are starting EJ Perry at quarterback, and this comes a week after he was benched for throwing 2 interceptions, so if EJ Perry struggles again, I would not be surprised if Troy Williams got some playing time. But the Showboats offense hasn't been the best so far this season, scoring 13.7 points per game, and they faced the Panthers defense pretty good, allowing 18.7 points per game, although the Panthers defense didn't play their best game last week. Then offensively for the Panthers, Bryce Perkins got the start at quarterback, and he's coming off a great performance last week where he won Offensive Player of the Week. And Perkins and the Panthers offense are pretty good, scoring 21.3 points per game, which is second best in the UFL. And they match up against a Showboats defense that's allowing 20.3 points per game. Now, this is a game that I think is going to be on the lower scoring end. Both these teams good defensively, but I'm going to take the Panthers to get the win. I think Bryce Perkins can continue to build on the game he had last week, plus in Week 1 he was great against the Showboats. I think Bryce Perkins will play well once again. The Panthers, they're at home, and I just think they're the better overall team. I've got the Panthers 18-12. Moving to the couple of games we have on Saturday, beginning with the Battlehawks at the Renegades. And this is a game that is very tough to predict, and I think this is going to be a good game. Both these teams were undefeated coming into last week, although both teams lost, as the Renegades lost to the Stallions 10-9, and the Battlehawks lost to the Defenders 27-15. The Battlehawks offense is best in the UFL in terms of points per game and yards per game, as they're scoring 24 points per game and averaging 317 yards per game. But the Battlehawks offense was not good last week, as they were held under 200 yards and to a season low of 15 points. Now, they were facing a great Defenders defense, but the matchup doesn't get any easier this week for the Battlehawks, as they face the Renegades, who have the number 1 scoring defense in the UFL, allowing just 9.3 points per game. Then on the flip side, the Renegades offense has struggled recently, with just 9 points last week and 11 points the week before, and on the season they're scoring 17.7 points per game, which is 4th in the league. But the Renegades, they match up against the Battlehawks defense that's allowing 14 points per game. And this is a really tough game to predict, because I can see this game going one of two ways. First, I can see the Battlehawks getting a big bounce back win. They're mad about last week's loss, they come out, play a great game, and win this game fairly convincingly. But I could also see the Renegades defense dominating the Battlehawks offense just like the Defenders did last week, and I could see the Renegades getting the win. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle of that. I think this is going to be a close game. I do have the Battlehawks with the win, just because I don't trust the Renegades offense, considering what we've seen from them in the past couple weeks. And I think the Battlehawks offense will do just enough against a tough defense, and I've got the Battlehawks with the win 20-14. And this is actually a really big game for both these teams, because just last week, both these teams were 2-0, and now very quickly, the loser of this game will be 2-2, and that could be big in the playoff race in the XFL conference, considering we've got the Defenders at 3-0, and now both these teams at 2-1. So a big game for both teams. Moving to the other game we have on Saturday, and that is the Stallions at the Roughnecks. So on paper, this is a game that shouldn't be that good, but I actually think this is going to be a pretty good game, and this is a game that might be an upset. Definitely can see it happening. The Stallions, they're 2-1, and they've won back-to-back games, although last week they did not play well, as they beat the Renegades just 10-9. The Stallions' offense was terrible, and they're going to need to be better this week. While the Stallions' offense really hasn't been good so far this year, as they're scoring just 14 points per game, and really haven't found their offensive identity, as through the air and on the ground they've been not great. But the Stallions then face a Roughnecks defense that's decent, allowing 19.7 points per game, while the Roughnecks have the worst defense against the pass, allowing 191 passing yards per game. So I definitely think there's a chance the Stallions can get Matt Corral and this passing offense going. Then on the flip side, the Roughnecks offense has been awful so far this season, scoring just 11 points per game. But the Roughnecks, they're making a quarterback switch and starting Nolan Henderson instead of Anthony Brown, and I really like the move. Nolan Henderson, he played really well in the second half of last week's game against the Showboats, and I'm really excited to see what he can do with the offense now that he gets the full game as the starting quarterback. And the Roughnecks, they match up against a Stallions defense that is allowing 13 points per game, which is one of the better defenses in the UFL. But I definitely think this is going to be a game that is a lot closer than most people expect. I would not be shocked to the upset, especially because this is a Houston team that has given the Stallions some trouble in the past. But I'm going to take the Stallions to get the win. I've got them winning just barely by a score of 23-21. But again, I would not be shocked to see the upset. And our final game on Sunday, we have the Brahmas at the Defenders. The Defenders, they're coming off a big win over the Battlehawks, winning 27-15, and they're now the league's only remaining undefeated team as they're 3-0. They face the Brahmas, who are winless as they're 0-3, although I do think the Brahmas are coming off their best game of the season as they only lost by 3 against the Panthers. The Brahmas will unfortunately be without head coach Wade Phillips, who is taking a leave of absence, and this seems to be health related. He missed last week's game because he was sick, and I definitely hope Wade Phillips can get well soon. But the Brahmas' interim head coach will be offensive coordinator Peyton Party, and he was the head coach last week, and I really like what he did. The Brahmas' offense hasn't been great so far this season, scoring just 13.7 points per game, which is second worst in the league. Although last week they scored a season high 23 points, and quarterback Kellen Mond looked pretty solid. But the Brahmas then will get a really tough matchup facing an elite Defenders defense that is allowing just 12.7 points per game. And the Defenders, they've also got a dominant defensive line as they lead the league with 11 sacks. Then on the flip side, the Defenders' offense is pretty good as they're second in the UFL, scoring 20.7 points per game, and they face a bad Brahmas defense that is worse than the UFL by quite a bit, allowing 28.3 points per game. But I do have the Defenders getting the win here. They do need to avoid a letdown after a big win last week, but I think they're the better team. I think their defensive line will dominate and keep Kellen Mond under constant pressure, and I've got the Defenders improving to 4-0 on the season and winning this game by a score of 21-9. Well, those are my Week 4 UFL predictions. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible. Be sure to check out the community tab of my channel, where you guys can vote on who you think win this week's games. But that's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.